Member of the board,
Everybody?
it's my pleasure to introduce to you Karen Sherwitz.
Susan Trubowska. Nice to meet you.
Mike Baranowski.
Nice to meet you.
Patel, Karen,
You go by Chuck?
Jimmy Zukowski, thanks for
Okay.
coming.
Nice to meet you.
Andy Zulay, nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you, Andy.
I'm Sharon Stiltner. Nice to meet you, Karen.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Karen Bethany.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, welcome and thank you for coming tonight. And I'll start us off by asking, what prompted you to apply for our superintendent's job?
Thank you. Well, I did a lot of research on the district, and one of the big things that, well, I like the size of the district because I'm very passionate about children and the effect I have on children. I am a believer and a lifelong learner myself, and feel like I can help to instill a love of learning in children. Algonac has really great MEP scores, very competitive, and they have a lot of intervention programs in place, which I find very impressive. So they beat the odds in some of the schools. I know one of the schools is a reward school because they beat the odds, and I think they're doing a lot of great things.
Very good.
Karen, in your current district, how would your community members describe your community involvement?
My community involvement, they would say I'm everywhere. They see me all the time. I attend pretty much all of the athletic events that are home games. I'm involved in Lions Club. I'm also involved in, we have a Polish festival, so I know you have a couple festivals, or I know one, Pickerel Festival.
Pickerel tournament.
Yep. That's pretty big. So I get involved in our Polish festival, and
Probably the best festival. I
yeah,
imagine,
I mean, people see me pretty much everywhere. So I love to be out in the community.
Good one, Mike.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Algonac takes great pride that this school is a significant part of our community. And with that comes the extracurricular and athletic activities. They're very important to the entire community. So what role do you think a superintendent should have regarding these types of activities? And could you give us some examples of where you have supported these programs in the past?
Sure. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? It's pretty long.
I know it
These
is.
multi-questions.
It's mainly what do you see the role as a superintendent in all the extracurricular activities that go on in our school district?
Oh, absolutely. They need to be involved. I mean, small towns, the school is the center, it's the hub. It can bring in a lot of activity into the building. Again, I'm visible in all of the athletic events. I like to be visible in the community. I like to get involved in activities. I just see the superintendent, I guess you could say, the face of the district. So someone who's out there, someone who's available. I like to put myself in situations where, not necessarily in school activities all the time, but being available to community members and parents or staff who can ask me questions, just not in the typical school environment. So if they see me out and about, it's a little bit less threatening. So I think it's very important.
Karen, can you describe a time when you weighed the pros and cons of a situation and decided not to take action even though you're under pressure to do so?
Sure. At the beginning of the school year this year, our seniors take a senior class trip, and it's very involved. They fundraise for 4 years. It's one of those things, if you want to pack your boardroom, you talk about the senior class trip or athletics in our community. And part of that was that we were getting a lot of pressure, I say the board and me, to not have a staff member attend the trip. Ours is basically all school sponsored. I know you have one that's not really as much school sponsored, but ours is very much so school sponsored. So we were getting a lot of pressure to not have a staff member go. And for us, it was a liability purpose, keeping the kids safe, even though it was, as you know, probably things like this in Algonac are the buzz of the community, and sometimes social media takes over on those things. To me, I actually did a lot of research. We looked at the pros and cons, spoke with the attorney, spoke with our liability carrier, but in the end, provided evidence or support for the board, for them to make the decision, because it actually was part of board policy. So they were pretty firm on sticking with board policy. So we required a staff member, or are requiring a staff member to go, and that will be at the end of the year. So pros and cons, just for example, another part of this was a class advisor wanted to book the trip through a non-educational tour company, which is also a requirement for us because it is an educational trip. And she wanted to book it on just like a third-party fun jet. And when I compared the trips, she forgot to include a trip back to the airport for the students. So it just, there were too many things that could have gone wrong if we went in that direction. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Karen, who are the most important groups of people in a school district, and how would you plan to reach out to them?
Are we talking besides the students? Or
It's
can
whatever
that?
you think the question means.
Okay. I obviously think the most important group of people in the school district are the students, and I think we reach out to them by making connections with them. So building relationships. I'm pretty big on in a student council letting the school, the kids, make the decisions about certain things, following the process, understanding how that works, going through all the procedures, but giving the students input in things, giving them ownership. I know like in one of the libraries, I can't remember, I think it was the high school, they designed a sofa area. Did the students have input into that? I don't know, but that would be just something really simple, or how would you like this area to look? What's comfortable for you? So, and I mean, it could be the same with academics. What kind of programs do you like to see? I know you do some online programs. How do those work for you? And giving them options. So I don't think you can argue that the students are the most important group. I mean, I think all of the stakeholders work together, but that's why we're here. It's for the students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, do you think we have a current crisis going on with school funding now as it is? And if so, do you have any suggestions for a resolution?
I would say, if you want to call it a crisis, yes. I don't think it's recently current. I think it's been ongoing for a while. I think our solutions have to be creative. We want to make sure that we keep our priority around students. So if we are looking at, and I know Algonac is looking at making some significant reductions, and Brian has been doing some financial meetings. So I think that's a good start. I mean, a good place. Communication with the stakeholders is extremely important, the transparency, getting input. Is there a solution? For Algonac, it would be getting more students in the area. I know when I looked at the census numbers in 2010 and 2000, you had a significant drop just in the population in the area. So how do we get people here? I think we market as far as, and some of these things you may already be doing. Algonac has they have good MEEP scores. I mean, in some of the areas, the highest in the county. So we have to capitalize on the things that we're doing well. I think building relationships with reporters and getting your message out to the community, all of the neat and the great things that you're doing. So financially, looking at creative ways, I think other things that we have to do is look at you have to not wait. If you know the district is having some financial struggles, you have to kind of monitor that constantly. The longer you wait, the deeper the reductions go. So planning ahead is really important. It's difficult nowadays because, as you all know, the budgetary guidelines change and sometimes aren't finalized even when we approve a budget. So trying to do a 3-year out budget if you can, just to kind of see what direction the district's going. But staying on top of that, not waiting until the very end or waiting until you have to make some significant reductions. I think another thing that you can do is look at creative ways to bring in revenue. Grants are always a good way. It's certainly not going to bring in significant amounts in most cases. But we have to look at creative ways. But I think it's that saying, if you build it, they will come. It's the community, the stakeholders, the students providing great programs, continuing to have great academic scores, and hopefully you'll bring students back in the area. I know there's not a lot of industry here, so that's a little bit of a challenge.
Have you had any expertise in that marketing field?
Marketing, to me, is yes, I believe in marketing. I think the marketing style I use is much more subtle. It's not, let's go and put some banners out and say we want kids. It's providing those good quality programs, giving kids opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have somewhere else. I know also the students participate in the Blue Water Academy, so the 5th year program. I know that's more ISD wide, but possibly bringing in direct credit classes, working with your community college. And in our school district, we have some teachers who are adjunct faculty for community colleges. So the students take their class, and that would tie in great with your IB program. The students take the college class on our campus with our adjunct professor that was credentialed by the local community college. So they get college credit and high school credit. So programs that make you kind of innovative, push the envelope a little bit, and just I guess creating programs. So to me, marketing is creating a good product, and when you create a good product, and it's kind of hard to kind of make it a parallel to a product because kids are a product, but our school, creating a good positive school, and I think that really helps. I mean, I think also too, another big point, sorry I'm going on, is it starts within. It starts with the staff, and we have to have a positive vibe going on within our buildings. And when that starts there, it radiates and it permeates throughout the community. And the school is a hub of the community in most small areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, you already answered this one just a little bit, but my question was, in tough financial times, what are your top 3 priorities? And you already mentioned that students, of course, are a priority, but maybe just tell us why or how you might go about protecting students and their academics.
I think, again, you have to, if you're looking at making reductions, then as much as you possibly can, you need to try to keep those reductions away from affecting students. That may not always be possible, but I think that has to be the start, the first place to go. Again, I think looking ahead, planning ahead, looking at a long-term budget and coming up with some creative ways to produce revenue. But that part is usually only a very small piece.
Thank you.
How would you go about introducing yourself to our community and staying in touch with community members and maintaining visibility in our district?
When's the Pickerel Festival?
4th of July weekend.
I would probably do some kind of community meetings. It could be playing cards with the group that was here today. I know that there's a lot of community involvement in the schools. And probably being visible. So again, being visible out in the community, going to some of the local, you don't have a lot of local sit-down restaurants. I tried to find one today for lunch. But attending some of the festivals, probably doing some coffee meetings or just community meetings, introducing myself, being visible in the school buildings. I'm guessing probably a lot of the staff and live in the community, so that would be a big portion of the community as well.
Okay.
Karen, you mentioned it all starts with the staff, and I believe you're right with that. How do you keep that morale of your staff up in tough times when we're talking about budget constraints and concerns, and how do you keep your staff motivated?
I think as educators, oftentimes we have a tendency to focus on the things that we don't have control over. And I think we need to redirect some of our energies to the things that we do have control of. There are a lot of things going on at the state that affect the morale of teaching staff, affect the morale of, the whole funding and operation. But I think we really need to focus on the things that we can change. One of the things that I'm doing in my district right now is we're having all of our staff are meeting, and this could be at a building level. We could do something like this. And we're brainstorming. What are some, and it's all of the staff. So it's custodial, and our custodial is subcontracted, but they're still part of our building. So custodial, business office, secretaries, kitchen staff, everyone is involved in this meeting, and we've brainstormed what we do well and what we don't do well. And how do we improve upon the things that we do well? And what do we do to fix or improve upon the things that we don't do well? So I think it helps to create, it actually has helped to create a lot more positive vibe in our district, because there are things that are changeable. Most of them are perception of what the community thinks. So our next step, because we're right in the middle of this process, is to look at what are some things that we can do. And it's not just coming up with ideas, it's how can we implement a plan. I think that's the other piece we do well or don't do well, is we all have a lot of great ideas, but we don't often have a plan on how to make these things happen. So implementing some kind of a plan, and the staff are doing it, so again, it's ownership for them. So, and there's other ways, some little ways we do Log Your Pride. You could do a Muskrat Pride Award. I know you do, is it a person of the month or year?
Month.
Okay. So I think that's a great idea. Our staff actually nominate the people and talk about the neat things that are going on in their classrooms. So it's kind of, everyone gets involved. So little things like that too, just patting them on the back, saying, hey, we're doing a great job. I think the other thing is listening, having an open line of communication, showing a general interest for their concerns. I like to walk around the building in the morning and just kind of, again, be available. If someone has a question or a comment, it can be, hey, what about this? So again, it's not necessarily having to seek me out, but being available, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, what communication systems or techniques do you use in a position of superintendent to keep the community, the staff, school board, and students informed about the school?
Community?
Staff, school board, and students. Communication systems or techniques, and then I have a follow-up.
Oh boy.
But we'll take that one first.
Okay, community, when I started in Boyne Falls, we do a one mail newsletter in the summer, so that's one way to get our community involved. And in that newsletter that we mail out, there's also a place for them to sign up to receive our monthly district newsletters. So we started a monthly district newsletter that does go out via email, and we send it to any community member who would like it. We send it to all of our parents, and any parent who doesn't have an email address, it goes home as a hard copy. So that's one thing that's available. Community. We have a website, I guess that's kind of an obvious, so the newsletter is posted on the website. We have a Facebook page, so we use a lot of social media. We have a Twitter account, which we also use, it's linked on our website, so people can view our Twitter on our website. I guess that would be community. With staff, and it's, I try to limit most of my staff communication to one, I call it a weekly calendar. I think we get overwhelmed in the amount of emails we receive, so I try to condense all of my communication to staff, memo type of information in a weekly newsletter calendar. It's really short, it's very bullet point. There are areas they can look at specifically for if it's a grade level, they can see. But, I mean, obviously, also face-to-face communication. I do walk around, touch base with staff members quite often. And so those are the main forms of communications. Staff meetings, I'm a big believer in not everyone, how to say this, and not everyone should agree with what you have to say. I like when people are not argumentative, but don't always agree with you, because I certainly don't have all the answers about everything. We have a lot of great qualified people who work in our schools, and if you don't have a little bit of discussion or disagreement to some extent, you're not going to have any growth. So I like to encourage that to some extent. So it kind of spurs growth. School board, I think the big thing for our school board and probably for staff is I also do a weekly newsletter for our school board. Phone calls, if there's something that you might hear about from a community member or a staff member that is like, you should know about it, I'll make a phone call, usually to the board president and possibly all of the other board members depending on what it was. So something immediate, for example, we actually had a real lockdown this year, so that was a contact I made pretty quickly to all the board members, because generally they're going to hear about it from someone in the community and say, no, I didn't know about it, and that's not a good thing. So no surprises is kind of the rule that I use, and I'm pretty good at picking those things, and eventually I'll learn if there's something maybe that you would want to know. I mean, communication for Susan might be different than you, Beth, so how do we adapt that to make it easier? I have board members that I drop off my weekly calendars at their house. So just, put it in her mailbox. She's not the most computer literate person, doesn't like to look at things on the computer, so I print them and just drop them off. So again, and that also works the same way. If there's something that any of the board members know about, I don't want any surprises coming my direction either, so keeping me informed. But I think open communication. You cannot have enough communication. So, and that's with all of the groups. I think in today's day and age, you have to be careful about how much you provide, because we all get overwhelmed in the number of emails we receive. So as much personal as you can when necessary, and then keeping it short. Students, it could be through student council, it could be the daily announcements, it could be talking to small groups that might represent something. There might be a group I had a 6th grade group that didn't want to go outside for recess. So they actually wrote a letter to me, and I sat down and met with them, and we talked about it, and we came up with some, why should you, why shouldn't you, what are the pros and cons, and they ended up still having to go out, but at least there, at least there was they actually feel like they're having some input in the whole process. And I think our student government pieces, our student councils are really important to teach kids how to go through that process, because it's real life, and they need to understand how some of that works. So.
Okay, the follow-up to this is, tell us about your accountability to those groups, Board of Education, staff, community, and students.
And when you say accountability?
Help me here.
How am I accountable
Right,
to them?
right. How are you accountable to them?
I guess I don't totally understand that question. I mean, I'm accountable to them. I mean, that's my job.
Okay.
So, that's what I have to do. I mean, it's
So
part
as it goes
of,
to the rank that you are the one.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, you know, there's going to be communication. I mean, I know there's communication with teachers and students and teachers and community members. But I don't think you were asking me that piece. You were asking more how I communicate. Okay. Yes, to me, that's my job. I'm accountable to the community. I mean, there are stakeholders. They're all our stakeholders. So I'm accountable to all of them.
The buck stops there.
Yes.
Karen, have you ever been involved in a bond or millage campaign? And if so, what role did you play in it?
I haven't been involved in one extensively. The only one that I really have been involved with has been our CTE millages through the ISD. And we help to, I'll say market it, but share information and show stakeholders why it's important to what this can do for our school district. Not saying yes, vote for it, or no, don't vote for it, but just share the information. So I guess communication again. But I have not been involved with a bond or a millage within my own district.
Thank you.
Karen, what experiences do you have in personnel contract negotiations? Have you been a lead negotiator? Have you been a member of a team? And can you give us some examples of what you've done?
Yes. I actually have been very fortunate because I have sat on negotiations on both sides of the table. I was the lead negotiator when I was a teacher, and we actually were, when I became the lead negotiator, our team was the first group to negotiate with solely the superintendent, and developed a relationship to try to work collaboratively and be proactive. Because it's kind of a two-part, and I'll get to that other part in just a minute. So I've sat on both sides of the table. I've been a lead negotiator. I've negotiated probably 2 contracts when I was a teacher, and I've negotiated 4 contracts, I gotta think, as a superintendent, 2 for each group. I also have worked as a SNAP negotiator for the MEA, and basically what that is, or the Michigan Education Association, was that I was hired basically as a subcontractor, and I went into a school district close to my area where I lived, and I was the lead negotiator for a support staff group, so I have that as well. I think one of the keys in negotiations, I think it can be done collaboratively. Obviously, sometimes, I guess when it's all said and done, if both sides are a little unhappy, it probably was a fair settlement. But I think one of the big keys is try to be proactive. When I was on the teacher negotiation team, I was also the grievance chair. And the superintendent currently at the time and I met probably once a month on a regular basis and looked at things like, okay, is there anything that's going on that, maybe we need to look at or address? So being proactive, trying to get ahead of the curve before it becomes a problem. So I've had extensive experience with negotiations. I actually like it, so I don't know, I think that makes me a little weird.
A little bit of a follow-up question to that. At Boyne Falls, in your last negotiations, what was the makeup of your team? Did you have administrators on there, school board people? Were you by yourself? What was that about?
The makeup of my team was myself and our business manager and a school board member. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Karen, you mentioned some of your activities in your district or your community as far as the Lions or the Polish Festival. Could you tell us some activities or something that you do in your position as superintendent that keeps you involved and engaged with your students in your district?
I guess to me, because I'm a superintendent and a principal, that one's pretty easy. So I'm pretty involved with students on a regular basis. I kind of rotate sometimes just to be visible. And this isn't really an activity, but I like to sit down and eat lunch with the kids. So you get to know them on a little bit different level. Again, I'll attend some student council meetings or address students in groups if they have a concern. Another example is we used to have bells in our school, and we had a discussion about, well, should we look at eliminating bells? And there's actually a little bit of research out there that says, it increases your instructional time, but we involve the student council in that whole process. And they actually met with other student body members, and we tried it for a brief period of time to see how they would feel about it. And after that short period of time, again, I had a student group that did a petition, and they wanted to change it. And so we kicked it back to the students and said, hey, go ahead and do the research and let's talk. And they actually recommended that they wanted to continue to not have bells, and so that's what we did. So
We have a number of different buildings in our school district. So how would you be able to do that? You wouldn't be principal, so how would you go about engaging with the students with so many different buildings?
Just be visible in the buildings. I think, March is Reading Month. Great time. Try to go into some classrooms, working with staff. I mean, that's going to be the key. Are there some activities where I can come into the classroom and sit down and read a book to the kids, work with them one-on-one? Again, I could still do lunches in some of the buildings. So I think the key would be working with the building principals and working with staff, but trying to getting in there on a regular basis so you are visible. I think personal connections for me are really important. I know there's a lot more students in this district, but personal connections and getting to know the kids is really important.
It is. Thank you.
Okay. As a superintendent and a principal, what statewide legislative issues under consideration or being implemented are of particular interest or concern to you?
Well, probably the one that pops up in my head the most is the third grade literacy one, where if third grade students do not pass a state required test, they would be basically retained. So I think that's pretty big. It really would change the climate of our school system and the community. I mean, I don't think it's just a school system. I think it's the community. So that's actually, I think it's really big. Whether or not it will go anywhere, who knows? I think there's a lot of legislation out there that gets introduced and kind of hangs on and doesn't go anywhere. So,
have you taken any action on that?
Yeah, actually it's kind of funny because we're working on a project in one of my classes that I'm working on right now that we're creating a white paper that we're going to be sending to Flanagan.
Okay.
So we're looking at what are some of the issues and what could be some potential solutions. So I think being involved. So it's a tough one. I think that's a tough one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, given the size of our community, it's probably a little larger than what you're used to. Do you see yourself fitting into Algonac?
I do, actually. I guess I could say just the vibe and driving around the community and meeting people. It's actually, people are very similar. I think, again, small town, the community's the hub. I'll probably say there are a lot of people that are related to each other in the community. I think, yes, there are more people, but I mean, that is part of the reason why I want to be part of a bigger community, is to have a greater effect on children. So I see myself fitting in. I mean, I love the water. It's very serene. Brian said, hey, do you want a room? I'll set you up to work because I spent some time in the district today. I said, no, I think I'll just go sit by the water. And I live by water too, but it's just
So
for
you know what a
relaxing.
fish fly is?
I know what a fish fly is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, describe some ways that you have used data to make curriculum decisions that have enhanced student achievement.
We have done a few things. Right now, I developed, when I was a principal, I had developed a data spreadsheet to help teachers monitor data. And when I came to Boyne Falls as a superintendent principal, they had one in place, and I said, well, let's look at this, and how can we, because you don't want to change things, but you want to enhance them. So how can we work together? And they were very receptive, so we worked together, and it's pretty involved. I think data is important, and I think it's important for teachers to track it. So when they can track and they can look at multiple sources of data points, we can see what are some of the areas that students are struggling. One of the other things that we did with our 7th through 12th graders is that when we have a child, we call ours child intervention. Most districts call their teams child study or student success teams. Ours is called child intervention, because we want to work on the interventions that we put in place. We don't want to work on the child, but what we can do, so to speak, to help that child. So, we meet, all of our staff meets once a month, and we look at students and we do it twofold. We look at students who excel and students who struggle. Because I think sometimes we don't focus on the students that excel and how we can meet their needs. So we also look at the students that struggle, and we put some interventions in place. Some of those interventions include, we assign them a staff mentor. And the staff mentor will touch base with that student and say, how are you doing? Again, creating connections, creating a bond. And we also assign the student a peer mentor. Occasionally we have peers who actually tutor students, and it actually has developed a pretty good relationship and has been very successful. We also, as part of that, we have a couple things. We do have a study skill intervention period during our day. It's about half an hour right now. And students who are more at risk in math would spend, I know you have an intervention piece in place, probably a little bit more intense than ours because yours is 2 days a week for a longer period of time. Ours is very similar, only it's every day, and students who are struggling in math, the math teacher works with those students to work on skills that perhaps they are missing or remediate, however they need to help them excel their learning. Because students that are behind, we want them to gain more than a year because they're already behind, so more than a year in a year. And then the same thing with our ELA. We have our English Language Arts teacher work with those students on interventions and how we can excel their learning as well. Another piece to that is we also started this is all using data, so to speak. We also implemented an incentive program, and again, that was done through our student council. We do it about once a month, every 4 or 5 weeks, and the students don't meet a minimum grade or they meet the minimum grade get to participate in this incentive program, and it actually has been very successful. The students who don't get to participate in it has gotten less and less just in 1 year. So, and the student council design the activities that they want to do. So again, they're not going to be some of the boring stuff and things that they think adults plan for them. They're going to be the fun things that students can plan. So that's one piece. Those are, a bunch of pieces. I think data is important, but I think there's also a fine line between overusing data and not making learning fun and enjoyable. So I think that's another important piece. So we have to use data to see what kind of interventions we can put in place and to see how students are doing, but we can't fixate too much on that as well, because I think we all know, and probably all the teachers that are here think we assess students a lot. And I think the United States is a great country because we foster creativity. So we don't want to lose that creativity piece too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, one last question we have for you. Suppose a teacher and a principal come to you with a concern about one of the students, and their concern is that student may have potential to hurt himself, herself, or somebody else within the building. How would you approach that situation?
I think the first thing that I would do would be to probably, if it's a counselor, you said a counselor and a principal?
Teacher and principal.
Teacher and a principal. I would probably get the counselor involved in the first place. And it would be a notification to the parents as well. So we can get some supports in place for that child. It may be something that the parent is aware is already an issue. Obviously your counselor is going to be important because they're trained more in that area. But I think just trying to get some structures in place to help them. And there could even be, the counselor could even recommend some outside resources, counseling for the parent if they don't have anything in place. So, but I think it's something that has to be taken seriously.
And finally, do you have any questions for us?
I do. I guess you've all had the opportunity to hear what I've said about myself, and I guess I was just curious at a couple things. What I'm going to do a two-part question. First, I'll start with, but I'll do them one at a time. What are you all most proud of about Algonac schools? What is something that you feel is really innovative, or there's a lot of things.
Well, there's
Yeah.
so much. I mean, when I think of Algonac schools, my very first thing is the dedication of the teachers and how they go above and beyond in their everyday with the students and with the community.
I think our district is very innovative and has a vision of always trying to improve and make students better. And when I think of Algonac, that's what I think of.
Algonac is a place of people that are innovators and are creative. Algonac finds itself on the leading edge of many different things. Technologically, in our county, we were at the forefront of doing technology stuff. Our bond issue in 2007 gave us the opportunity to build a huge infrastructure that nobody sees, but that supports all the smart boards and wireless and all those things, which has changed how teachers teach and how children learn. And it has given our staff, it has given our people an opportunity to be able to push the envelope and take risks and chances and be on the leading edge of things. Our IB program has given, while there are not a whole lot of students taking the actual classes, the practices and things that IB are known by all of our staff. So every kid in that building is getting something from that, and that's more of the innovativeness and creativeness of our people. And so I think those are it revolves around the people, and we give the people the resources and the stuff to do, and they're rock stars with it.
I'm gonna say, go along with Beth, the staff that we have is fantastic. They do very well with the children that are here. We spend a lot of time with them. Our community is great with what we do with the kids, and they support the board. Most of them do. And well, we've come big strides, so we think we have still some work to do, but to me, I think that's the most important, would be the staff and the community and where we are headed with our education.
Which is refreshing, because I think, research shows, Robert Marzano, that the teacher is the #1 factor affecting student achievement. So.
Wow.
I agree.
I kind of echo my fellow board members on everything they said, but I'll add something a little different. The community, the environment that you can grow up in this community, I think is wonderful. I came from a large school district, East Detroit, and I moved up here in my 11th grade, and I was a graduate of Algonac at that point in time. When I moved up there, I hated it. Came from a huge schools district, and I come to this little small community, and I absolutely hated it. By the time I graduated, I loved it. And I watched my kids grow up in this district, and I wouldn't trade it.
I came from a large district, a suburb of Detroit, so.
I'll echo exactly what Mike said. I work in a large district, but went to Algonac here, and I'm a graduate and have my children going here as well. And I think Algonac is a place where kids feel important, where they can be somebody. It's sort of like that place where everybody knows your name. People feel comfortable here, people stay, people leave, people come back. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Chuck?
Yeah, right here. Just wait my turn. When I go out to talk to the building principals, I like to just chat with them a couple of times a year. And sometimes I can get into the classroom, see what the teachers are doing. When you do that, you really get a feel for what we're doing in Algonac. Beth said it about the teachers. We have great educators here. And it's something that, myself personally is very proud of. We've had 3 generations of our family go through these schools, and we still wouldn't be living in Algonac if it wasn't for the school system.
I guess what do you think is, this is part 2, what do you think is the most pressing issue or issues for the new superintendent?
Budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Pretty easy question.
Yeah.
Budget.
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the
Yeah.
room,
Okay.
is seeing what comes of that.
Right, hopefully the governor's proposal comes through and it's not as big of a cut or reduction. Would be nice. How would you describe your relationship as a board?
Well, I think we have a few new members and, wait, I don't want to say.
Careful how you say old, Beth.
Seasoned members. And so I think it's been working. Don't know.
We're diverse, we have different opinions, and that seems to work.
But everybody respects each other, so that works too.
Coming from the diverse backgrounds that all of us do, kind of gives each one of the rest of us a spin on how we think about things. Having people that have been involved in business and financial people, and recently we got an educator an administrator on our board that has given us a different outlook on. That's a recent example of something where when there are things going on, we have somebody sitting at the table that is studying that stuff at work. So that's kind of helpful.
I think we have a variety of different opinions on our board, but I think we all have the same #1 issue, not issue, but what we think is most important is the students and what we can provide for them to be able to learn.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, well then, thank you very much.
Okay, I just wanted to say,
Go ahead.
thank you, and I thank everyone who came to, the interview tonight,
Mhm.
and, I know it's a tough decision, and, I wouldn't wanna be in your shoes, but, I'm kinda, here I am, and this is what you see. I'm pretty, straightforward. This is who I am, so I'm excited about the opportunity of possibly working for Algonac Schools. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.